Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are. This is Carl Wilder and Natasha Cohn with Expat Radio. Good morning, Natasha.
Very good morning to you. I presently have a small white and ginger cat climbing onto my legs behind the laptop.
Okay, we know who that is. Yeah,
Yeah,
we often get visitors from animals here. It's a pretty common scenario.
absolutely. He has now found the bottom of my legs to lie down on.
Okay, well, that's what kitties do. They like to lie down on things.
They
Oh,
do, they do.
so on things that impact the EU, I've got a little list of things to kind of get your take on. But one of them is the EU Commission essentially canceling democracy in Romania, saying that the candidate who was elected by the people is not qualified to run, and they're trying to interfere and get this guy removed. That feels totalitarian to me. Are you keeping up with that?
I am not keeping up with that, but I happen to agree with you. Why do they say he's not qualified?
They don't like many of his positions. Um,
That doesn't mean he's not qualified.
Right. But that's what it is. The EU Commission has one. They are unelected officials, and there's issues coming up around them because of that. But they are unelected officials with representation from all of the parties in Europe, and they tend to come down pretty hard on people and make a lot of decisions that different countries disagree with. And countries do not always have to follow their recommendations. I mean, you know, Ursula Anders is the head of the commission. Are you familiar with her?
Is that the blonde woman?
The blonde woman, exactly.
I
Right.
thought she had a longer name than that.
She does, but I don't use the whole name because I can't remember it.
Fair enough.
Ursula
Then I
von
know
blah 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 blah.
that
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah. It's just too much. So that the debate has been about Romania, that Romania should be allowed to choose their own leader. And interesting, the party that you don't like in Germany is the one most supporting democracy in Romania, and has written up something to vote on that would take away the totalitarian dictatorship from the EU. It's very interesting to me to see how the parties behave in the EU Commission, because they often don't behave according to the way we believe they will behave based on what we read on their web pages or what we read about them in the press. So I do watch some of that coverage to see what the real take is versus the what we're told the parties are about. And I'm surprised to see is it ARD or ADF supporting
AFD.
AFD supporting democracy so vehemently.
Am I to guess that the newly elected leader of Romania would belong in the AFD if
Nope,
he is
not at
not?
all.
He's not
Not
far
not
right.
not remotely so. No,
Oh, he's not far right.
no.
Hmm. Is he? Uh, is he totalitarian? I mean, like Hungary or something like that?
No.
Oh, well then, I mean, anyway, Hungary. No, yes, Hungary
Hungary, yeah.
also elected their leaders. So whatever, you know.
So Kalin Gorgesco is the one who was elected, but Diana Soasco is the leader of the far right political party in Romania, and she is the one that was rejected.
Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, as you know, France twice came close to electing the Front National, and had they elected the Front National, the French people, then they would have elected the Front National.
That would have been their choice.
That would have been their choice. I mean, a perfect example of that is Trump.
That man, he has basically come out as being the servant of Benjamin Netanyahu, when we see this Columbia student who's legally in the U.S., who's married to a U.S. citizen, who protested the Palestinian occupation, being told he's being sent out of the country for his views on Israel. I mean, that to me is so totalitarian that I can't even conceive that the U.S. has come to this point.
What about the lovely British girl who has a visa to the US, traveled to Canada, went back to the US? I mean, after all, it's her right to travel wherever she pleases, and came back to the US and was arrested or something or other and has been in a Louisiana jail now for some time.
I don't know this story at all.
Oh, you'd love that one. It's just a British student. I mean, 100% British, you know. I mean, it's not like a British nationalized from a country that Trump could have issues with. It's
You
100%
know her
British.
name at all?
I suppose I can look it up.
I mean, I just tried, and it said they couldn't find any information about a British girl incarcerated in a Louisiana jail.
Oh, no. She is there.
I'm not arguing. I
Oh,
know
yeah,
nothing
of
about it.
course. Uh,
Oh, we know what
British
that is.
student.
Louisiana jail.
U.S. jail.
Because maybe it's Georgia. Oh, dead air.
Rebecca Burke.
Rebecca Burke.
Yeah, Rebecca
All right.
Burke. I have an article here from The Guardian.
Hmm. And what are the supposed charges against her?
A British tourist on a 4-month backpacking trip around North America has been detained by ICE in the US for 10 days after trying to enter the country via the Canadian border. She was refused entries. She was planning to stay with a host family where she would carry out domestic chores in exchange for accommodation, and was told she should have applied for a working visa instead of a tourist visa.
Yep, that happened to a friend of mine a few years ago, and he turned around and went back to London. He applied for a tourist visa, and they asked what he was there to do, and he said, "I'm here to hire a new manager for, secret food tours for the city." And they told him, "You did not have the right visa. You have two choices: either we detain you or you return." And he returned.
So Canadian authorities told her to go back to the US and fill in new paperwork before returning to cross into Canada. However, when she tried to re-enter the US, she was handcuffed and put in a cell before being taken to Tacoma Northwest Detention Facility. She's been in there for 10 days now.
While that's distressing, that is a visa issue, and she's not being held for her political beliefs.
She is in this orange prison outfit.
Being held for political beliefs or for protesting war, to me, is much more distressing than being held over a visa issue. While it's nonsense that she's being held over the visa issue, it doesn't show the same kind of, horrific intent as imprisoning journalists and imprisoning people for political beliefs.
Oh, of course. But something like this happening in the US?
Well, actually, there's a long history of things like this happening in the US. We just don't read about them. There were, in the past 4 years, there were 4,000 people detained for visa issues. Mexico, Canada, UK, etc. So either you return to where you were coming from, or you're detained until the visa issues are sorted out. She should have just returned to Canada. Because in the US, the law is clear, and it's stupid, but it's clear. You cannot exchange work for a living without the right visa. You can't do it. That's not a new situation. That's not a Trump thing. That's an ongoing stupid violation where they should just say, hey guys, you got the wrong visa. Let's fill out the paperwork for the right one and let them, go. But that's a long-standing policy of the U.S. And your camera went off. Are you with us?
I am back with you. For some reason,
Okay.
I was not with you, but now my camera will not turn on.
Well, not the biggest crisis. It may come on organically in a minute. As long as you can hear us, you can talk. All right.
Indeed. So
One
yeah.
of the ludicrous things that I've been noticing a lot lately, and two of my favorite stores are Aldi and Lidl, right? I love them because they often offer good prices. They sometimes have really good loss leaders. I can get, cheap meat for my puppy dog at Aldi or Lidl, so that he's always fed properly. But more and more and more things are being wrapped in plastic. Things that weren't wrapped
Oh,
in
I
plastic
hate that.
a few weeks ago are now wrapped in plastic. So avocados, I used to be able to buy an avocado, local avocado, pick one up, put a sticker on it, check out with your avocado. Now they're in packs of 3, and 2 are always rotten. I don't want a pack of 3. I don't want the cardboard. I don't want the plastic. But this is one of the most absurd things that I am noticing about this. Everything's in plastic. It shouldn't be. We don't want it in plastic. We throw all of this plastic away when we get home, right? You're back on camera, by the way. And then if we need a bag, which I have only needed once because I bought a little too much, I carry bags with me. It's 10 cents to, quote, save the environment. I mean, paying for the bag is not saving the environment. There is more single-use plastic in those grocery stores than I could shake a stick at. And it's plastic I don't want. When you wrap broccoli in hard plastic, it causes the broccoli to deteriorate. It breaks off all the cute little fronds. When you leave it loose, it's fine when you get it home. So I'm getting a little pissed at all of this pretense at doing good things for the planet, but it's not real. None of it's real.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I have had places where oranges were wrapped individually.
Oh, man.
Which, well, it's kind of understandable because it stops you from getting any bacteria on the skin of the orange, which you are bound to eat.
Yes, but you know that
No, I'm
oranges.
kidding.
Well, I was going to say oranges. The citric acid kills bacteria. It's like using vinegar.
Yeah,
on your
but I mean,
counters.
obviously, you don't eat the
I'm
outside
worried
of it.
about bacteria, but I get what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, you don't eat the outside of the orange. I mean, I couldn't understand if they wrapped apples, but at least they could argue you do eat the apple skin. But oranges is ridiculous. Now you've frozen over. That's interesting. And your voice is not there either. So, wow, this is a very interesting recording today. I hope it's you and not me that I'm just talking into the air. But no, I think you are locked in. So I shall continue the conversation until something changes, I guess. Yes, I agree with you. We use so much plastic and it is so not good. It's ridiculous. You're still frozen. I'm hoping you come back. I'm hoping I'm still on. Am I still on? So Carl will be joining us in a minute because I'm the only one left here. And I can't get any there we go. Carl is back.
I think I was the one that left that time.
Yeah, you were. And your image still isn't back. But
It'll
that's
come back in a
perfectly
minute.
all right. Yeah, there we go. You're all back.
I'm here. So, all right. And that led me down sort of another rabbit hole at the grocery store. I'm looking at all this plastic. And because I'm looking at the plastic, I'm noticing food grades on items. And do you pay any attention to those food grades?
No, I
Yeah.
not only not pay any attention to the food grades, I don't even pay attention to the food prices.
Oh, I pay attention to prices like crazy. Um, but they put a grade on food. And so if you look at the back of, say, a bag of potato chips, it might give you a C. If you look at the box of cereal, it might give you a B. And these are put on there by the EU Commission as guidelines to help you choose nutritious.
And they find that cereals are more nutritious than potato chips. I don't know. How much sugar is there in there? And Carl is locked again. He has a lovely face, I have to say. He's obviously going to say food because his mouth is making the bit, but so he's gone again. So, nutritious food. I suppose if they're going to wrap all the vegetables, they're going to put A signs on the back of them. Do I have any containers of commercial food next to me? No, I have some plums. I have some honey, but that was bought from the honey place. I have some bread bought from the bakery. So, no, I have nothing. I do have 3 empty bottles of wine over there, but somehow they don't have any nutritional value stickers on them, although I can attest that they were very, very good. And they're both French. One is a bottle of rosé, and the other one is a bottle of Apremont, a wine from Savoie.
Okay, somehow we got on wine. I froze again.
I was talking about, I don't have any nutritional value, commercial food around me. You see, I was saying I have some honey that was bought straight from the honey farm, and I have some fruits. So, and the only thing I have that I bought are bottles of wine, but they don't have
Okay.
nutritional value stickers on the back.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't. But
No.
wine does have a nutritional value, and it also protects against fat calcifying in your arteries. So
Oh, that's going to be my excuse.
well, no, it's not an excuse. It's actually a true thing. An enormous study was done called the French paradox. French people eat more fat than anywhere on earth, from the cheeses to the butters, the sauces, etc. And they have no issues with cholesterol depositing in their veins. They often have cholesterol levels of 5, 6, 7, 8, 900. Whereas in the US, if you go to 200, they try to put you on statins, which.
And he's frozen again. This time I think it's the sh sound he's trying to make. Pardon me while I have a sip of coffee. So, my liver doctor told me that since I have PBC, which is not peanut butter and cucumbers, I call it, but primary biliary cholestasis or cholestatus, eating sugar and drinking wine or alcohol doesn't really affect that. It would only affect me if I had fatty liver, which I don't have. So actually, technically, I can eat sugar and drink alcohol, but I decided to ignore what she said, and therefore I don't drink alcohol or eat sugar. I have eaten quite a bit of sugar in the last 2 days because I got pissed off at my scales or at my body, because after a lot of diet and exercise, I had actually put on weight, and that pissed me off. So I had a cronut yesterday. Anyway, so I have had some alcohol, but apparently now it's very good for my arteries. So but I don't think it's. See, I don't drink red wine, so I don't think white wine and rosé would have the same qualifications. You're back. We're still talking about wine.
This is one of the most absurd days. I don't know why I keep losing internet here, but I am. Um,
That's all right.
Internet in Spain is not terribly great in general. I have been to, coffee bars and all kinds of places, and some days we have this problem, and it just keeps going out, going out, going out, going out.
Never mind. We were talking about wine. You were talking
I'm a big
about,
fan of wine.
yes, but I don't think it's. Um, you were talking about the study, but I think it's more red wine than white wine or rosé.
It is more red wine, yes.
Yeah.
White wine and rosé have their place, but they don't have the same impact on health.
Yeah. So I don't drink red wine, so I'm not sure that could be my excuse. You see.
Then you have no excuse. You're just an alcoholic.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
Yeah.
have
No.
had in the past 2 weeks, I have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units of alcohol.
Don't know what a unit is. So how much is that? Is that a
A
gram?
unit would be a unit would be a glass of wine, a shot of alcohol, a beer.
Okay. So on
So
Wednesday, I had 2 units. That's been it this week. 2 units. Okay.
I'm talking about the last 2 weeks.
I just remember Wednesday because clearly I was too drunk last night.
Well, no. So in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 glasses of wine, a beer, and 2 cocktails.
Okay. Okay, that's not bad.
Although to be fair, that was all drunk in 2 different days. 3 glasses
That's
of wine
okay.
one day, 2 cocktails and a beer another day.
Yeah, I think that many of us, when we're doing a social occasion or something or having a special dinner, we have something, and much of the time when we're not, we don't.
No,
Even
yeah, I
French people
usually
don't drink
don't.
wine
Yeah.
every day.
My mom did.
I'm like, good for your mom. I have iced tea right now.
Yeah, my mom had a small, very small, I mean, like small,
Okay.
glass of Bailey's for cocktails, and had a glass of red wine for lunch every day.
Okay. And that seemed to
She,
work for her.
yeah, dementia didn't help though.
No, but dementia can happen whether you're having wine or not.
On the plus side, she may have had dementia, but she never forgot her red wine and her glass of Bailey's. As a matter of fact, when we buried her, I emptied a bottle of Bailey's over her grave. Actually, over her coffin before they closed the grave,
Okay.
so that she would have some Bailey's to keep her going.
Well, this is an interesting thing. There is a custom of feeding people on their way to heaven from some cultures. And I, didn't really know about that until my previous dog, Beauregard, who lived to be 21 years of age, died in New York. And I carried him to the vet because he died at home. And when I came home, the front of my building was lined with candles, flowers, and dog treats. And there's a little girl, representative of the neighborhood. She goes, "We came with flowers, so Beauregard's journey to heaven would be sweet. The candles will light his way, and the treats will feed him." It was
Indeed.
so touching that they had done this for me.
Yeah, that's lovely. When my mother was buried again, oh yes, I meant to tell you about that. My daughter just walked in and is walking out, and picked up something that she was meant to pick up last night. Anyway, when my mom was buried, one of the other things that she loved and did, as long as she could, was play a French card game called Belote.
Yes.
And when she was buried, as the people came to pay the respects above the coffin before it was closed in, they had a choice. I stood there with a pack of 32 cards, which is what you play belote with, and my sister had a bunch of red roses, and they could pick which one they would throw in to the earth. And there were hundreds of people there. The whole village came. And by the end, of course, I had no more cards. So she was buried with a bottle of Baileys, or actually the contents of a bottle of Baileys, and 32 cards in case she wanted to play belote and have a Baileys later on.
There we go. So, none of us really know what happens after death. We all sort of suspect something, but none of us know.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. But so, just in case,
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
contents of a bottle
absolutely
of
for that.
Baileys. Yeah, yeah.
What would I give my mother just in case? She doesn't drink that much. I suppose one glass of White Zinfandel.
There we go. But that's enough.
Yeah, she has one glass of White Zinfandel every Friday at cocktail hour. That's her one treat a week.
Well, then that's definitely going in.
But I personally cannot abide the graveside services. I'm not a fan of funerals in general because I believe in celebrating and remembering the human being, not the body in the box. And the funerals
Well,
to me are very macabre and unpleasant. I don't want to
no,
see a corpse.
it wasn't. Well, God, did I? I've seen many of those in my lifetime. But, when my mom died, it was definitely a celebration.
Yeah.
All the people of the village came, people talked, people laughed. We gave her some Baileys, we gave her the cards. We went back to her house. We had food and drinks, and people were telling stories and laughing. We had a grand time. My mother was very well regarded and very loved, and she was incredibly kind to everybody, but especially to her beloved village of Saint-Meme de Pérérol in the Dordogne, which she and like, for instance, her house burnt down in 2008, and that house, it was rebuilt after that.
Mhm.
But when it burnt down, of course, because it's on the hill, everybody from the village could see it, and everybody rushed over, and they were making chains to empty the ground floor while the other two floor burned, to remove everything of value, or not value for that matter, just to empty the entire ground floor. So, and then they gave all the guests that were staying at my mother, because there were 6 bedrooms there, so it was always full. There was always about 20 people in there, and they they all had a place to stay, until their planes. My parents stayed with friends for weeks and weeks and weeks, who you know um wouldn't think of them staying in a hotel. Practically had a heart attack when my mother said, we'll stay in a hotel. Of course not, you're fine here. And the local restaurant gave my parents and everybody who was staying with her free meals for the rest of their stay, because some people were staying for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, and the fire happened and they still had a week at my mother's house, so their plane wasn't for another week, or something like this. And of course, you can't change your plane back to the US or something. So those who couldn't change their planes had free meals at the restaurant for the whole time.
That is not the Lutheran tradition. In Lutheran church, there is no smiling, no laughter, no celebration at a funeral. You have to be dour, and you have to stand in a line while everybody says, "I'm sorry for your loss," but doesn't mean it. And then you have this horrible 2 to 3 hour ceremony of hymns and sermons and bullshit. And then they go to the graveside and they put the body in. with, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Then everybody goes back to the church where the church ladies had prepared a sad little meal in the church cafeteria or basement. And you have to eat a little bit of this sad little meal because a church lady will pat you on the back and say, your mother would want you to eat. Your father would want you to eat. You have to keep your nutrition up. And it's just horrible. There's no party. There's no celebration. There's no home reception. It's just horrible. And they keep the coffin open, which is, to me, just grotesque.
Well, my mother was particularly atheist. She was far beyond atheist. She abhorred all kinds of religion, all religions. Okay. And so there was absolutely no church service whatsoever.
Good.
I mean, she would have died had she had a church service, which she wouldn't have had because we all more or less agree with her, So I don't abhor a religion. I believe everybody has the right to believe whatever they want. I do not like religions that insist I should have it as well.
And that is not most religions, fortunately. That's only a few that are really into the proselytizing.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm not a fan of any religion. Yes, I agree with you. You can have the right to believe or think whatever amuses you, but I don't support it. I don't respect it. I think it's a manifestation of either child abuse or mental illness.
I do respect it. If I go to Thailand, I will, cover my knees and cover my elbows.
Well, no, that's not respecting the religion. That's just behaving in a manner that's appropriate for the culture. I'll do that, but I won't respect the religion. Respect is the feeling that you have. I don't respect any religion. But yeah, if I'm going in a mosque, I will take my shoes off. But that doesn't mean I respect the religion. That means I respect the traditions surrounding the religion.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I do. I mean, if you want to worship a tree, please, I'll make sure that I never say anything bad about the tree, and I'll respect your belief in that tree, but don't expect me to worship the tree as well.
Do you know that people did used to worship trees, that they were part of the old God lexicon?
Well, can I tell you that I've come across quite a few trees that I would respect more than anything else, because some trees are absolutely magnificent. Are you frozen again? Oh, I think you may be frozen again. I mean, go out in fields or something like this, and you come across an absolutely beautiful, huge tree, and you think to yourself, especially in like an oak tree, and you think to yourself, what have you seen in your lifetime? If trees could talk. Apparently, they do communicate with each other one way or another. One way you can see that in some places is there's some trees that will not run over each other. So the lining of the tree at the top kind of goes like this, but it never, they never touch each other because somehow they're communicating. I have no idea how, of course. You'd have to talk to a tree expert. But I do find trees fascinating. So there. And we have Carl back.
Yeah, only my fourth disconnect today. We're having great internet.
Yes, and we talked about trees again because I was talking about sometimes you walk around and you see a magnificent tree and you
frozen.
think, no, well, it's not me. Oh, it's you again. Yeah. So let's pass on trees and go on to something else. Let's try and find something that Carl could get his teeth into, something that would really get him going. And I'm not going to mention the T word because that would get me going. Um, oh, I heard a cat. We have two cats now in here, by the way, because my daughter just dropped hers. So hers is a beautiful black cat with a little white patch on the chest. It really is little. It's about the size of a dime, or actually a 10-cent piece in the UK as well. So, pardon me, frog in throat. Or, as the French say, I have a cat in my throat. J'ai un chat dans la gorge. Actually, I have two cats in my flat, but none in my throat. Now, one of the things I was trying to do after I finished freezing is I was trying to get the old background that I had of fuzzing my background because, oh, there we go, he left. Because as you can see my background, which is kind of, Carl's back.
Wow. This has been a day. This has been a record for disconnects.
It has.
Well, I'm glad you're keeping the party going. While I was disconnected, I was reading about Norse mythology, and the massive ash tree connects the 9 realms. Tree worship is among the oldest religions in the world.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm not surprised because some trees are absolutely magnificent.
I mean, the Greeks and the Romans, the Celts and the Druids, the Slavs and the Baltic pagans, the Hindus and the Bodhi tree, it's still considered a sacred tree in the Hindu religion. Christmas trees are, I suppose, a version of tree worshiping customs. Maypoles, touching wood for luck, touch wood,
Yeah.
touch wood.
To be fair, as the Christmas trees are actually killed, it's not really that hot.
Well, yeah, not all of them are. I started doing, when I do Christmas trees, I do a living Christmas tree, which is where you get a small one in a pot and then you donate it to be planted in a forest outside. I've only done it twice in Germany, but living Christmas trees are a thing if you want to get those.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I honestly, well, the last time we would have had a Christmas tree would have been the last Christmas I spent with my mother. So it would have been 2021 to 2022 at my mom's house.
Right.
Last time I had a Christmas tree at my house would have been before 2010 because since 2010 I haven't had a home. So yes,
You've had a home.
Well, I've had a place. I would consider a home somewhere where I have everything I own and I have guests that come over, and I do things like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, things like that.
And you can have guests where you are. I mean, I've been promised beef bourguignon for 3 years.
That's true, but remember that my guests would have to sit around my coffee table on little stools. I don't have a
Which is
dining.
not the worst thing on earth.
It isn't.
One of my best dining experiences in Hong Kong was sitting on a plastic stool in a little alley, surrounded by ladies of the evening, eating seafood that this incredible chef was preparing for us bite by bite. And the whole thing came to, I don't know, not very much money when we were done. This little food stand, I would just point to things in the kitchen and he would make them. It was an incredible tasting menu on a plastic stool and a plastic table with Natalia in Hong
Oh,
Kong
absolutely.
for very little money.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Some of actually the two best meals I've ever had. One was in a cave. I think it was a cave in in um, in Mallorca in the mountains, and the other one was under a corrugated iron roof in Croatia on an island. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, none of them, none of my most memorable meals happened in a five-star restaurant, which I have been in several.
No, none of my most memorable come from 5 stars either. And yeah, I've been in Michelin starred restaurants,
Yeah,
and they're often very well plated and beautifully designed. But when it comes to the sheer quality of food and the incredibleness of the experience, most of mine have been in odd or different locations. I still remember this little shack on Kathu in Thailand, where I would go for lunch and get the dish of the day, which was whatever she was making. That was it. And everything was so incredible, you know, just divine
absolutely.
taste, spice, but not, not the kind of spice that would even burn you. Spice, not, heat.
Yeah.
Lots of basil, lots of herbs. Um, I remember the basil pork belly that was so incredible. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well,
So I've had a lot of really incredible meals at what would not be considered even restaurants by many, from shacks.
indeed, when we were in Thailand, in Bangkok, staying at the TT Guest House, which even that was a bit of a grand name. And basically, all they had to eat was pad thai and fresh orange juice. I have never, ever had pad thai or fresh orange juice of that quality since,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and I order pad thai every time I'm in a Thai restaurant, just so that I can remember that original
Huh.
pad thai.
Pad Thai is one of the few things that I almost never order in a Thai restaurant. I might get drunken noodles, but pad thai, no. I think it's because pad thai has that balance of sweet and salty, and the sweet doesn't work for me.
Ah, we must not be eating the same thing. Pad thai is served with
Pad thai always
peanuts
has a sweet
and
element.
lime, and I don't take it with any meat or tofu. Ah, well, not mine.
I guarantee you it has some sugar in there.
Hmm.
You probably don't taste it because you eat sweets periodically. So for you, the amount of sugar in pad thai would not be detectable to the palate. For me, it tastes like a sugar bomb.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, no, then you're right. Yeah.
That happens with a lot of dishes where, this little bit of sugar is used. Um, for instance, I've got a friend in Berlin that she's American, and she loves to make ragouts and tomato sauces and things like that and have people over for pasta. She puts sugar in it. And she swore that no one else had ever been able to taste it, that I'm the only one who thought her sauce was sweet. And she's probably right. But for me, it was just inedible because it had that teaspoon of sugar in a pot of sauce, a teaspoon in a pot, and I couldn't gag it down.
Chicken soup is made
Yeah,
with some sugar.
not my chicken soup.
Well, Jewish chicken soup.
Depends on the Jew. I've had a lot of Jewish chicken soup in New York that was not made with sugar.
Yeah. Jewish chicken soup usually adds a little sugar at the end.
Really? Why?
I don't know. I'm not Jewish.
Huh.
So, But my mother-in-law has confirmed, and she's Jewish, although my husband
Really?
isn't.
Well, your husband's semi-Jewish. N
Oh my God, he
Traditional
better not
Jewish
hear you
chicken
say that.
soup does not typically contain sugar. The classic recipe relies on the natural sweetness of some cooked carrots, onions, and sometimes parsnips. Um, no, there's no traditional Jewish recipe that contains
Mm.
sugar. There might be someone that you know who adds it, but it's not common in the Middle Eastern version or the Ashkenazi version. Um,
Well, the
Matzo balls will
Ashkenazi
sometimes have a
version.
tiny bit of sugar.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
matzo balls have sugar, that's for sure. But no, yeah,
but
the
only the
Ashkenaz.
matzo ball.
Yeah.
It's
No.
not common.
Oh well.
You have,
Just
yeah. So I don't want to paint all Jews with a bad sugar brush. Um, Only some Jewish people apparently use it, and it's not that common. Thank goodness, because I would hate sugar in chicken soup. But yeah, matzo balls do have it, and I remember
Mhm.
my friend Patrice in New York saying, "I put a pinch of sugar in my matzo balls," and I said, "Can you take a matzo ball out for me before you add the sugar?" She thought it was very strange, but she did it, and I love matzo balls, but I make mine without sugar. There's something about that light, almost airy thing in the chicken broth that's so incredibly divine tasting.
It is, isn't it? I mean, chicken soup really is Jewish penicillin. You know, when you eat chicken soup, I mean, I'm talking homemade.
Right.
There is something. I think it's years of it being hammered into your brain. You just sit here and you go, yeah, I feel better.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I developed a sinus infection over the weekend. You might have
Oh,
noticed my
great.
voice is less than usual, and I rarely have much of a voice. I'm, down in the hinterlands. And so I went to the local doctor here, and I said, "So should I get antibiotics?" No. And he gave me a vitamin drink that was loaded with really high doses of vitamin D and C, no sugar. There's a no sugar version, thank goodness. And told me to do that, have tea, and have some chicken soup. And if I didn't feel better, come back and he would give me the antibiotics. And you know what? By Wednesday, it was gone. Chicken soup, vitamin D and C. And vitamin D is good for your immune system. We know that it helps your immune system combat things. I did not need the antibiotics, which I'm glad about because they do a number on your system in many ways.
There may be a small, adorable animal kind of
Oh, I see
creeping
the
in.
small adorable animal. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, creeping into. Actually, I'm lying on the sofa, and behind the sofa, between the sofa and the window, because sofas are always slightly inclined, so there's a
Right.
little space at the bottom, and there at the bottom is the other cat. So this cat
Ah.
is looking for the other cat that's underneath the sofa
Okay.
because they're
Well,
playing.
my little guy is sound asleep right now. We don't know how long that's going to last, but he was so upset with me yesterday because he goes with me everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just the thing. And when it was time to go to school, it started to rain, and he insisted on coming home. He turns around in the rain. He does not like it, so he came home, and then I turned around and went to school. Oh my gosh, that did not sit well with him. Now, I still got a hero's welcome when I returned, after 2 hours. But he sat on the floor and gave me a look like, how could you leave me just to go take a damn Spanish class?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I came home and all was forgiven, and I got 20 minutes of jumping and whining and greeting and, you know, running at my feet. And it's so cute how he'll give me the angry look, but then when I return, I love you so much. How could you leave me? I've only had to leave him twice in the time we've been here. So, and not for more than 2 hours.
Well, yeah, I get it. we're as you know, we're going to the UK next week, and normally,
Oh,
hopefully, this will be I will be broadcasting from the car on this very
we're gonna
laptop.
cross our fingers that we both managed to stay online.
Indeed. So we should, um, by the time our show starts, we should be into the old West Germany, which I hope means the reception is better. It's not because it's East Germany or because it's West Germany. It's only because along the motorway between Berlin and the old West Germany, there aren't very many towns. It's mostly forest. So there isn't an enormous amount of towers.
Well, once you get into West Germany, however, there's a lot of towers.
Exactly. So it's just because the old East Germany between here and the West Germany doesn't have many villages.
No, there's
So
a lot of trees, and reception is dicey. So we'll see how we do. But
indeed,
I think if you're getting close to West, we'll be fine because it's highly
I sh-
concentrated with cell phone action.
well, we're kind of planning to leave early, like around 8. So by the time we get to you, we should be well into West Germany.
Yeah, you should. It doesn't take that long.
No,
Now,
indeed.
speaking of the UK, how do you feel about Keir Starmer and the fact that all of these pictures of him on Epstein's Island came out this past week?
Huh, I must have missed those.
Yeah, he
Totally missed
posing with
those.
Tom Hanks, whom we know was a frequent guest, and posing with Ghislaine Maxwell, the Mossad agent who, probably ran a certain amount of that for Jeffrey Epstein. She was convicted of it, but, it's funny. All of these people are being convicted for it, except for the clients who took advantage of the young girls. Not one of them has faced charges.
Um, well, I didn't, but Adam and Clara here watched Tetris last night
All right.
and the film. And am I right to say that Robert Maxwell featured in Tetris? Bibi? Adam?
Yeah. Well,
Am I right to say that Robert Maxwell featured in Tetris?
yeah.
Yeah, Robert Maxwell featured in Tetris. And I believe it was not in a very good light. And
Well, there's not very good light around that man. He was a pretty bad guy.
that gave Adam an opportunity to explain to Clara the whole Maxwell family and how Robert Maxwell disappeared from
Yeah.
his yacht.
Yep. Yep. Disappeared, was removed, was killed. We don't know.
Was his body ever found? I thought his body had never been found.
His body has never been found. No.
Yeah, another one, huh?
Yeah, there's far too many coincidences when it comes to that. And I mean, this is another Trump disappointment, and even his fans are furious at this. He promised within 24 hours of taking office, he would release the names of the Epstein, clients, not the airplane logs, because we know Meryl Streep went there once for a party on the airplane, and I'm guessing Meryl Streep, is not a HEPA file. That's my guess. But the actual client lists, the people who paid for access to these young women and young men. And that didn't happen. He promised to release the Kennedy files. That didn't happen. He promised to release the Martin Luther King files. That didn't happen. Nothing that he said he would do has he done. He's been, for his own supporters, they're all over Twitter furious at him for not keeping any promises and not cutting off aid to Israel. And, did you read about Thomas Massey this past week?
First, let me address the first half of your sentence. Trump
Right.
not keeping promises? Golly, you must be joking.
No, I'm not joking. I expected it, but many of his supporters thought that he would genuinely release this information, and none of it has come
Hmm.
out.
Yeah,
Um,
really. Yeah.
you know, I expected none of it would come out. I never expected it to come out. And of course, the reason it won't come out is because who's behind all of this? That's what they don't want to expose. They don't want to expose who's behind Kennedy, Martin Luther King. You know, they don't want that out there. And if they release all of this information, it would be out there, and it's going to
Well, I
topple
don't want to be
somebody.
mean. Yeah, but I don't want to be mean. But on the top of the list for Epstein um, would be Trump.
Actually, there's only one reason I suspect that's not true. Because for the 4 years prior to Trump winning this election, the Democrats had the entire client list. And I think if Trump had been on it, they would have released a few selected names just to bring him down. The fact that they did not do that makes me suspect that Trump was a friend but not a client. I could be wrong, but I think if the Democrats had had Trump as a client and had proof of that, they would have made sure that it was everywhere.
Well, with the amount of threats, blackmail, etc., going on in the United States government from all sides, they may not have had the opportunity to release that.
Unless if they were clients as well, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to release that. And that could be the case. That's why I'm saying if, maybe, so I'm not sure who was and who wasn't. We know there were certain visitors like Prince Andrew, who's been, sued civilly, and it's proven he was, a big part of everything that went on there, but no criminal prosecution against him, but he did have to pay up in a civil lawsuit.
Again, I strongly believe that Prince Andrew is more idiotic than evil.
Well, I don't know whether he's idiotic or evil. What he did is wrong, regardless of whether he's an idiot or a evil guy.
Yes, of course it is, without any, of course. But
I will not argue that he's an idiot, but it's possible to be evil and an idiot. I think Trump is both.
That's true. Yeah, of course. But I think Prince Andrew, it's literally a case of him. I mean, I'm guessing his IQ score isn't very high.
From what I've seen of him, it's not. Yeah,
exactly.
He sort of fumbles everything. And Fergie still lives with him and still runs his life because
you know what? I mean, honestly, it's just like you froze and the killer is, and you freeze. So why is Fergie still living with him and runs his life? Because, and now you freeze, and it's like we'll never know. I mean, honestly, it's terrible. How could you do this to us? So let's sit here and think of all the reasons why Fergie still lives with him, because after all, it's nice. The house is big, servants galore, doesn't have to pay anything. So that's a rather positive thing. And but there must be something else that Carl was trying to tell us. And there we go. Carl will be back in a second and tell us why Fergie still lives with him. So there we go. Let's find out. And well, looks like he's not coming back. I hope. Oh, there we go. So Fergie still lives with him because
she runs his life. I think that she's hopelessly devoted to him. They live together, not as a couple, and she runs his life. She runs his PR. She is taking care of him. I've never understood that relationship, but I don't understand many relationships because they're not mine to understand.
It is very possible that she is, rather than devoted to him, it is, I would say it's probable that she's more protective of him,
She is that, yeah.
you know. And I think at the time of the Epstein stuff, she was not living with him.
No, actually, she was. They were in separate wings, but they did stay together. Yeah.
Oh, because there was quite some time when they didn't live
Yeah,
together.
it was just prior to the Epstein stuff going on. She was disappeared for 3 years. She was a spokesperson for Weight Watchers, etc. Then she started living with him again, not as a couple, but as friends. And she has been his protector, his advocate, his PR machine. She's,
Probably since Epstein.
yeah, I'm sure.
Probably
Speaking,
he did this, and she went, "Oh, Christ, I better
speaking
take."
of abhorrent and disgusting people, do you know Andrew Tate? Are you familiar with him at all?
Oh yeah, my favorite, the lovely incel guy.
Yeah, he's not my favorite. Um, the
I I,
charge,
I
the
I'm
female
revolted.
trafficking
Yeah.
charges were dropped,
Oh,
but
good.
he revolts me at every turn. The things he says
Yeah,
about women
yeah,
are so disgusting.
yeah.
He's a horrible cretin of a human being, no question. However, I do defend his right to say what he says, be what he is, and do what he does as long as he's not breaking the law. I dis- I defend his right to speak. And I got into a big discussion on that on LinkedIn because there are a lot of people that want to shut down his right to speak. And I say, if you shut him down, you're a fascist. He must be allowed to speak. Free speech laws exist to protect the speech we don't like. And the response to speech like his is more speech, not censorship. I was attacked right and left by about 50 women saying, oh, so you're defending sex trafficking. Oh, so you're defending rape. None of which is true.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess these women were American.
Yep.
Yeah. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone that would defend female rights more than me. Okay. I have done so both in speech, writing, and physically. Okay. I am totally revolted by this man
I am too.
who I suspect there is a certain percentage of what he says that is done for effect,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
you know,
It's a way to make money.
exactly. Uh, Sex trafficking charges, at the very least, I mean, before the discussion even begins, I would cut his things off, all of them. Okay, he can have a stroll to pee. You know, um, but yeah, free speech is free speech.
I support his right to that. And no, I cannot stand the man. And, it was a technicality that got him off of the sex trafficking charges because what he was running were webcam girls. And the webcam girls did not actually have sex with clients. They only performed on camera. Therefore, according to the laws of the country where he is, and I'm sure that he was researched that carefully, it's not sex trafficking. And that's how those charges were dropped. So he runs girls on webcams. He makes the money. They don't, but they came to his defense, which really shocked me. They're happy to work for $1,000 a week while he makes $10,000 a week.
Okay, so these women were not captives.
No, they were not captives. They were, according to him, willing partners, and according to them, he gave them an opportunity.
Well, then, okay. I mean,
Uh,
in that case, it's a totally different ballgame.
I still find him disgusting, abhorrent, and creepy in every sense of the word. And the fact that he's an influencer for so many young men shows that, there's a void in our culture for strong, good role models, because he's not a strong, good role model. He's an asshole with a bunch of tattoos who smokes cigars and says horrible things about women. But young men look up to him because we've given them very little to look up to.
Absolutely. And it is much easier to blame the women who don't want to date you because you're a creep than to think, um, golly gee, maybe I should, change. So
Yeah, yeah.
if you can't get a date because you qualify yourself as a nice guy,
That's, nice guys can get dates. Short guys can get dates. Non-classically good-looking guys can get dates.
of
It's
course,
not that women aren't fussy, but women are looking for, not all women, there's women that only look for money, but many women are looking for a quality person in their lives, and they're not looking at you like the way maybe you're looking at them. And I think that's part of the problem. A lot of young men who've been influenced by pornography look at women as a collection of body parts, and they believe women look at them in the same way. Therefore, if they're not particularly muscular, if they're not this, if they're not that, they judge themselves. Whereas the women would be happy if they just came forward and treated them with kindness, respect, and ultimately love.
oh gosh, yes. I tell you something. Um, let's take my adored husband of 35 years
Adam.
as a possible example. Um, okay, it's true. First time I saw him, I mean, first second I saw him, I knew that was it. But then he played jazz on the piano
Oh,
just because, not to me in particular. He plays Scott Joplin on the piano. And, you know, play the piano, you got me right there.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
This
make me
music.
laugh.
Yeah, big
I'm
one.
right there. Yeah, I'm right there. Um, start being soppy and overly romantic and everything. I'm out the door so fast. Make your head spin.
Yeah, there are people who like that, and there are people who don't like that.
Yeah,
And
you
it's a
know.
matter of finding the right person. You found the right person, you know.
But I could name all the guys that I dated in the past. It was definitely not their looks that attracted me to them.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, the one guy that I absolutely loved the most before Adam, and I broke up, was the last guy I broke up with before I met Adam. So, in a sense, okay, it was 6 months later, but I met Adam on the quote unquote rebound.
Right.
But the first time I went out to dinner with Christophe, we were walking on the on the Pont Neuf in Paris,
Oh,
at night, and I thought to myself, "Shit! If he tries to take my hand, what the hell do I do? I'm absolutely not interested in him." Okay, and I don't know what it was. We spent some time together, and he was funny and stuff like that. And I fell in love so deeply with this guy. And I would look back on the fact that the first time we had dinner, I thought, shit, I'm so not interested. And then after that, boy, was I interested. And then,
Yeah.
you know, he broke up with me, but it's kind of funny because he broke up with me. Uh, we were having a discussion one day, and I said, because we weren't living together. I was still at, you know, I still had my place. He had his, and I said, I don't want to continue like this. And he only heard, I don't want to continue, and therefore thought he better break up with me before I break up with him. So he did. Anyway, a couple of years later, a friend of mine calls me up, and she's madly in love with this guy.
Mhm.
And she says she's hysterically in tears, and she said, that's it, it's over, it's finished, you know, he doesn't love me. And I said, how do you know? And she said, he said he didn't want to continue like this. And I said, really? I said, that's great. Well, the crying stopped immediately, and she started screaming at me. And I said, did you hear what he said? He didn't want to continue like this. Like this are the important words. Well, she went back. They talked. Next thing you know, they were engaged and have been married for coming up to 30 years now.
Right. When someone says, I don't want to continue like this, what they're saying to you is, I want to continue differently. And
Yeah.
that could mean marriage, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
People are funny in that they don't often hear people out if they're afraid of being emotionally rejected. So they often stop listening. They shut down when they have fear. And that's a natural human thing. But it's good that she went beyond that and that you helped her understand, like, this is the important part of it.
Exactly, because it broke up our relationship, but it taught me something.
Yeah.
It taught me that like this is the important part of the sentence.
And
Not
men
the rest.
often don't listen to anything beyond the first couple of words, and that's programmed into our DNA. And I admit that.
So, women out there, if you want your man to listen, you start with, like this, I don't want to continue.
Or maybe even better, I would like to continue this relationship differently.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's very good. Yes.
Yeah. And that is always possible, you know. People break up for all kinds of reasons, and it's people take things, I think, often too personally when something like that happens, because sometimes it isn't you, it's them. You know, or maybe it's their mother, or maybe they want this, or maybe they want that. You have to just kind of take it in stride. But then again, I marry everyone I ever meet, so you know.
Yep. I don't. Done it once, you know. It's like the Carry On films.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite bits is when Sid James meets up with what's her name? Bibi? Carry On, Sid James tried it once. Yeah, who's the woman?
June Whitfield.
Oh, June Whitfield, yes, of
Oh,
course.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he goes to her, he goes, cigarette? And she goes, no, tried it once, didn't like it. And he goes, glass of wine? And she goes, no, tried it once, didn't like it. And I think he offered her something else, and same reply. And he goes, that's really strange. And she goes, no, my daughter's exactly like me. And he goes, only child, I presume.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. They
And that
they
was
had
just so funny.
good setups to things. You know, who's on first? That was a good setup. Now a lot of jokes are insult humor, which I'm not a big fan of.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't like jokes that are below the belt or use, you know, swear words, except of course Billy Connolly, who doesn't fall in that category because Billy Connolly is an absolute genius.
He's an intelligent comic, so yeah, he uses a lot of words, that may be off color, but he's a smart man.
Yeah, gosh, I adore the man. I've read all his books. He is amazing. Are you frozen again? Yes, you're frozen. Good. Okay, let's talk about Billy Connolly. So Billy Connolly, as you may know, is a wonderful Scottish comedian who is also an actor and starred along with Judi Dench in the film Mrs. Brown about Queen Victoria and uh, one of the men in her life who is Mr. Brown, played by Billy Connolly. Great film. I really recommend it. Now, the thing about Billy Connolly is that he's Scottish, and he describes himself as blue because he's so white that the skin is almost blue, which I thought was also a very funny way of describing things. He's had a bit of a tough life, but he's made it. And wonderful, wonderful comedian. If you do find, well, you can find almost anything on YouTube in terms of comedy and sketches. So I recommend you listen to Billy Connolly. Other comedians I like are Michael McIntyre, and of course, the eternal, legendary Robin Williams.
Never a fan.
Oh my God, how could you not be? The nicest guy on the planet,
Because,
also the funniest.
well, there were a lot of lawsuits against him early on in his career that were won by the other comics. He stole material right and left. Did he make it funnier? Maybe. Did he present it better? Maybe. But he had to settle about 200 lawsuits from other comics for stolen material. And he did steal material right and left. He would go see other people and take their routines. So that's why I was never a fan of Robin Williams, because he kind of, once he got a little fame, he stole the material of younger comics and used that to elevate himself.
Doesn't matter. I don't care.
I do.
Amazing, amazing,
Ethically,
amazing
that
man.
doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
Um,
whatever.
no, yeah, I never loved him. I always thought he was on coke. He was just too much.
I got news for you. He was.
But, oh, okay, he was on coke. All right.
Yeah, for the first 20 years or something of his comedy routine, he was high as a kite.
That does not surprise me. That would
I
explain
mean,
why he had to steal
higher.
material.
Oh my God, higher than you could ever imagine. I think his entire sorry about that. Yeah, Robin Williams, when did he quit coke? Relatively late.
Okay.
So, okay. Uh, so,
So what?
William used to be a big drinking cocaine addict, but quit both three and stayed sober.
Quit both?
Big drinking and cocaine addict.
Well, when you're drunk and on coke, you can't write material, so everything about it makes sense now. Um, I Even Bob Newhart accused Robin Williams of stealing a routine.
Well, there we go.
I see. I'm a bigger Newhart fan. Robin Williams was hyperbolic and over the top, whereas Newhart was very zen and laid back. And I find that type of humor much funnier because the build up takes so much longer. It's not it's boop, 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 like going upstairs and then they fall. I've always loved Bob Newhart's approach to humor, the storytelling, the phone calls, the confusion, To me, that is sort of the pinnacle.
So apparently, well, he died in 2014. Did he die that long ago? Almost 10 years ago? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Well, that's 11 years actually. Yeah,
Sorry about that. Yes. So
that's 11
Robin
years. Yeah.
Williams, yeah. Robin Williams' friends lay bare brutal truth about his monster drug addiction, revealing comedian couldn't go on stage without blow and once accidentally snorted an entire gram of coke. So there we
Wow.
go. So
Yeah.
he was high as a kite, for instance, doing Mork and Mindy.
Yeah.
So
Never was a fan of that either. Yeah. Give me Bob Newhart. I'm loving. I've moved from the Bob Newhart show to the Newhart show. I finished 8 seasons of Bewitched, so I'm catching up with the 1970s and 80s right now.
very good. Have you watched MASH?
I remember occasionally seeing an episode when I was a kid, so I have the context of him. Alan Alda was great at serio comedy, bringing the comedy out in a very serious situation so that you could feel both. I think Alan Alda was just a brilliant actor, so I'm familiar with MASH.
Amazing.
I
Adore
can't say that
Alan
I've seen
Alda.
the entire series, but he was. I remember even as a kid seeing him going, "Wow, that is so hard to pull off, to crack a joke and still let us see the pain." He
Yeah.
was just a genius. He is a genius.
He is.
He's still with us.
He is. Good God. He is. I mean,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all my beloved actors from when I was a kid are getting on. I mean, they are literally all in their late 80s, early 90s. And I'm
Yeah.
terrified of opening the news and reading that blah blah has. And the way they do the news is that they write blah blah like headlines. Sir
Right.
David Attenborough has 3 little dots.
Right. It's clickbait. Everything is designed as clickbait.
Sir David Attenborough has 3 little dots. Man, I read that, I flip out,
Right. And it could be a grandchild or a rare disease. You don't know.
Or
But,
even
yeah.
met the king, or finished another documentary, whatever.
Right.
But I freak out.
Yeah, no, I can see that because they design all headlines as clickbait for these days. And
Yes,
I'm not
of
a big
course.
fan of that. Yeah. I'm the same thing. I was just thinking about Carol Burnett the other day. Carol Burnett, I have been back and forth with letters and cards with Carol Burnett since I was 11 years old. So she's a friend whom I have spent very little time with, except when she was in New York doing plays, and I helped her find a vet for her kitten Roxanne, etc. So we spent a lot of time together in New York. But other than that, it's been letters our entire lives. Now we're talking 50 years. And she's doing a new TV series, a season 2 of Palm Royale. And I think that work is what's keeping her alive at this age. The fact that she has to show up, has to know her lines, has to hit her marks. And she's doing something I think is very sweet and sentimental for viewers. She went to the producers and got Vicki Lawrence a guest starring spot on the show so they can be reunited after, not working together for half a century.
That is something. First of all, Carol Burnett, adore. Okay, obviously.
Yeah.
But Murder, She Wrote, that is something Angela Lansbury did all the time. She got old actors to appear on her show so that they continue getting their, actors stuff because they were still
Right.
working.
It was Angela Lansbury used to cast according to when somebody last worked so that they could keep their health insurance under the equity rules. So she had
Exactly.
casting
Thank you.
people actively looking for, okay, Lee Remick hasn't worked in 8 months. We need Lee Remick next week. And they wrote the show around these actors in order to keep the, and it worked. I mean, people loved the show. It had years of
Yeah.
life. Wherever this author went, somebody died. Apparently the concept, I never saw it, but I know about it very, very well. And I love that she did that. The Love Boat had previously been a show that didn't cast on that basis, but helped a lot of people keep their insurance, because the Love Boat would cast people who didn't work all the time. So there'd be, Barbara Eden and Barbara Feldon and, all of these people you don't see terribly often on the show. And I think that's a great way for these shows to have guest stars that the viewers want to see. And it helps these actors. At the same time, I think it's a crime that in the US, the actors would lose their health insurance at an advanced age if they don't keep working.
Totally agree with all of this, including definitely the last part. It is a crime. When you take somebody as an example like Barbara Eden, who is, is
An American icon.
yes, and the foundation of so many people's childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't crossed their arms and blinked? Especially as a child, to try and make things work.
Well, I didn't see the show as a child, so I was more about the nose wiggle, because I had seen a few episodes of Bewitched when I was in the hospital.
I
So
can't do the nose wiggle, but I can
Oh, easy.
definitely do the, yeah, something like
You just
this.
need the music. If I had the music, it would be, yeah.
But definitely,
Yeah,
I
the
can do
blink.
that.
Yeah. No, she
Yeah.
was iconic. And what many people don't realize is how much she worked before Jeannie. She was guest star of the week on every Western, every TV show. That woman worked constantly, and she worked a lot after Jeannie. But can you imagine her now at 92 going, if I don't do this appearance, I'm losing my health insurance? No 92-year-old who's had a career like this should be faced with, I'm forced to work at this age or I have no insurance. Fortunately for that particular example, Barbara Eden, she withdrew from the union plan because her husband has a company that has a better plan, so she's covered. But there are many iconic people. I know that Dawn Wells from Gilligan's Island used to do these appearances just to keep her insurance going, and she ultimately died of pancreatic cancer.
It is crazy. It is Gilligan's Island. I mean, to be fair, watching Gilligan's Island, all the shows, I always did think that no matter the storm, that little boat could not have reached any islands that was so out of communication. But whatever.
Well, I mean, everything about that show was total BS. The fact is that it was a 3-hour cruise, right? But the Howells had cases and cases of clothing. Marianne had pie pans. All of these things were on the island that would never have been on the island for a 3-hour cruise. And
Indeed.
they always had, where did they get the flour for the pie crust? Yeah, the coconut, that was obvious. It came from the coconut tree. But they needed flour, they needed eggs, they needed, none of that was ever explained. It was the most ludicrous television show ever to have been produced. And when I was a little kid, I adored it after school sometimes.
I adored it. I adored it.
Homework first, but if it was done, then I could watch an episode of Gilligan. Not every day, but my mother was strict about TV. But when I watched it, it delighted me.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it was simple. It had no bearing in any reality that ever existed on this planet, but the actors and the performances were so charming and enchanting and the guest stars. I mean, the Harlem Globetrotters could all get to this island, but they couldn't get the castaways off,
Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense.
It was ridiculous and it was adorable.
It
And the
was.
only surviving cast member is Tina Louise.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she
Ah,
credits the show for costing her her career because she was up for a Tony nomination and in a musical when she was cast in Gilligan's Island with Carol Burnett called Fade In, Fade Out. And they cast her in this show. And she tried to get out of it so many times when she realized she'd become this Marilyn Monroe archetype and was not going to get much more work. She wasn't wrong. That's what she became. And when she didn't play that, she got very little work.
oh, that is sad.
You know,
Yeah.
she wrote a book recently that barely talks about Gilligan's Island. It sort of brings up all the other parts of her career before that because she resented the show. Um, it's not that she hates the fact that she did it, you know, she's known for that, but at the same time, it really did stereotype her. Whereas Marianne, Don Wells leaned into that and took on all the girl next door, adorable farm girl roles. She chose to lean into the persona and not reject it.
And interesting thing is that you find that a lot of these TV shows, take MASH for instance.
Right.
Alan Alda has made an amazing career
Oh, he
because
has.
he is an amazing actor. I have occasionally seen some of the other stars of MASH in other roles, but very few. You know, I remember seeing uh, uh, the Padre in a show. I think
Father
I
Mulcahy.
Father McKay. I think I saw, uh, but very very few show. And even though those shows are, like take Frasier.
Yes.
Okay, now I've seen BB Newith in quite a few things. She does all right, and she's fabulous.
Yes, she is.
But how long was it? 20 years, 30 years of doing Frasier. I haven't seen many other people.
Oh, that's not true. David Hyde Pierce has had an incredible career,
David
folks.
Hyde Pierce, yes, he has. He has.
You
To be
know,
fair, he's fabulous.
in fact, all of those actors have had a lot of work. Harriet the Agent has worked on multiple shows since then. Everybody from Frasier has worked. The one who was got the least work was actually the lead, and he started doing musicals in New York because he couldn't get television work. He had become Frasier so completely, and that was Kelsey Grammer.
I saw Kelsey Grammer in a couple of TV shows that he tried after Frasier,
And
but
they
they didn't
failed.
last. Yeah.
Right. And then he revived Frasier, and that was recently canceled because apparently it was not good.
Yeah. We've been watching it because it is Frasier, and it's not the same at all.
I heard that there were a couple of actors in it that were so bad it was painful.
Yes, I can tell you that unfortunately his nephew, David,
Yeah,
is painful.
that's what I heard. That it was meant to be a substitute for David Hyde Pierce, and the actor was so terrible that nobody bought it. He couldn't act his way out of a paper bag, etc. That the son was pleasant, amiable, and that the woman, I don't know, some woman was supposed to be a dean or
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that she was also couldn't act her way out of a paper bag.
Well, considerably better. Let's not exaggerate here.
Okay, better than a paper bag.
Uh the sad thing is, of course, his uh, co uh, well, his co-star is a fabulous British actor, and he is very funny and very good, and has been. Now you're going to ask me what his name is,
I know
aren't
what
you?
his name is. You
What
don't
is
have
it?
to look on your phone. Um, 1 second. I'll pull it up because I have the cast. So keep talking.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put his name.
Adam will know. Bibi? Oh, he's still not out. Okay, so he's still not here. But Lyndhurst, something Lyndhurst.
Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Yeah, Nicholas Lyndhurst. He's a fabulous British actor, and of
No,
course
he is. He's
he's
done a lot. Um, and now you just reminded me of someone who did not work after Frasier terribly much, but she also chose not to, and that was Perry Gilpin. Um,
yes.
Jane Leeves worked constantly. Wendy Malick has worked constantly. Most of them have worked constantly, but Perry Gilpin decided to raise her children, and she just was done. So
Fair enough.
she apparently left show business and then was persuaded to come back to the Frasier revival for a few episodes.
Yeah.
But she had just left the business. She wanted to be a mom, and I totally respect that.
One of the one of the best lines in the Frasier episodes that came out to be so true was when what's his name, because I forget everything, talks about um uh a um a dish, and he describes it like Trump, and he says blah 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 was just like Donald Trump. Um, so so rich and twice as greasy, or something like this.
Okay.
It is an excellent line. That was done, of course, way before President Trump.
Oh yeah, there were jokes about him long before he was president because, well, he was a cultural figure due to his real estate holdings and his constant appearance on talk shows. Trump has been a part of the American entertainment fabric. Appearances in Home Alone, appearances on television. He even sang the Green Acres theme song with Megan Mullally on some award show.
I do believe Fraser Trump. Oh, here it is. The Donald was mentioned in some episode. I forgot what episode. A duck confit that's as rich as Donald Trump and twice as greasy. There we go.
Okay. I love duck confit, so I think
I
that's a
love duck
bad
confit, of
comparison.
course.
Um, Very bad comparison, but yeah, it does have grease. But now, and this is something I've always believed: animal fat is not the demon. Hydrogenated fats, fake fats, seed oils are the demon. And I would never use canola oil. Oh, that stuff is harsh, horrible for your body.
Uh, I do believe you have to be careful with olive oil. It is not very good for frying.
You know, I've heard that. And people say that, but at the same time, olive oil is what they fry in Italy. That's standard for them. In Spain, they fry in olive oil. So the croquettes, the potato chips at the restaurants and things, they're fried in olive oil. I tried frying chicken in olive oil. You just go at a slightly lower temperature. You make it less than 350 if you're doing Fahrenheit. And it's absolutely fine. Nor does it, the studies show that as long as you keep it under 350, you don't develop that toxicity that happens when you fry. It's just you can't fry at a super high temperature with olive oil, but you absolutely can fry in it.
Croatia, Dalmatia at least does everything
Right?
in olive oil.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of olive oil. Another good oil for deep frying is avocado oil.
I haven't tried that. I really should.
Avocado oil has a really high smoke point. It's cold expressed. It's not heat extracted or chemically extracted like many of the seed oils. It's not genetically modified. It's a great oil for frying anything. Um, there's a potato chip place here. If you've never been to Spain, potato chips are next level, and they fry everything in avocado oil. And they have no greasy taste at all. They're light and crisp and gorgeous.
We were talking about liver the other day, and I'm quite fond of liver actually. And
I am
in
too.
France, yeah, in France, I find that liver is cooked with vinegar.
Vinegar and often onions, yes.
Yes. But in like places like in the UK, it will usually be fried with onions, fried onions and liver. Whereas in France, it will, and it's usually something like raspberry vinegar or something like this.
Depends. I have a great recipe from Jacques Pepin for liver. You stir it in the skillet to the desired temperature. I like it still pink in the middle. Then you put it on a plate and you throw a handful of chopped garlic into the skillet and saute that. When it starts to soften, you throw apple cider vinegar into the garlic. And the
Hmm.
garlic becomes sweet and the vinegar adds a tang, and you pour that over the liver. It's outstanding.
Yes, and raspberry vinegar would be used primarily if you ate it with a salad or something like this.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is
Either way,
something that in Hungary they make something called liver salad. Have you heard
hmm
of this? They cook
no.
liver to usually a pink temperature, still a little bit, pink on the inside. They chop, it's usually calf's liver. They chop it into small cubes and they toss it with other vegetables, some onion and some other things, and it's in a mayonnaise. And you eat it cold with bread. It's so incredibly delicious that I can't tell you. I
Mm.
love liver salad. And I've never had it anywhere outside of Hungary, except for one friend in San Francisco whose ancestry is Hungarian. She still makes it. And she's promised me some when I get to San Francisco for a few days in July this year. She said she would make liver salad and we could hang out in the garden so that Milu could be there because she has a kitty who isn't a fan of puppy dogs. Insane cat.
We are planning to go to Hungary this year for, at the very least, a long weekend. So I must remember to have liver salad.
You cannot find it in restaurants. It's a grandma food.
Well, then we'll go to a grandma restaurant.
Well, not a restaurant. You're going to have to find a taxi driver with a grandma, somebody with a grandma, because it's not it used to be 40 years ago, you could find it in restaurants. Now you can't. Liver has fallen out of favor in the restaurants. Fewer people are eating it because the generation that loved it has largely died off. However, I have a place to send you called Salt and Poivre, Salt and Pepper. It's a restaurant in Budapest that does goose liver, a big portion of goose liver, and they do it with apples and vinegar, or they'll do it with onions upon request. It is outstanding, and not horribly expensive. And it's one of the few places that still makes a liver preparation. It's getting very hard to find goose liver in the Hungarian restaurants. It's fallen out of favor. Who are you kissing
Sorry,
now?
Cozy,
Cozy. All
Cozy,
right.
who is meowing at me and saying, "Mom, can I lie on your laptop?"
Of
And the
course
answer is
you
no,
can.
darling, you cannot lie on my laptop. Do send me this and any other recommendation you have for
Oh,
Hungary.
there's so many places. It's one of my favorite cities on earth, as you know.
Yeah,
Are
so
you going in
I'm
the
waiting.
summer or the winter?
Probably spring.
Okay, take a bathing suit. I'm going to send you to one of those healing springs,
Perfect.
Kaczynski, and it's incredible. You go down to the basement, or you can get a changing cabin at a higher price. It's not worth it to me. I just use the locker room. and you put on your swimsuit and you go outside into this incredible hot spring that is corralled in this big swimming pool, and you just soak in this warm water that's supposed to be a cure for everything. I don't know that it is a cure for everything. I do know that every time I go, I feel magnificent.
That's great. I'm all for it. Good God.
Now, that there's a restaurant there that has something you might want to try. Um, they still do one very old-fashioned snack that is not seen again like the liver in many restaurants these days, but it is they take bread and they spread either goose, duck, or pork fat that's been salted onto the bread and top it with fried onions.
That sounds
That's one of
like
those Hungarian snacks from when we needed the calories from every bit of fat we could get. Um, but it's so delicious. Fat and onions. Who knew it could be one of my favorite bites in Hungary? I also, I Hungarian wines are a big deal to me, and I can tell you what to drink and where to drink it. Yes, I'm even familiar with the whites in Hungary. I may not like them as well, but I can, there's a lot beyond the Tokai, which is the very sweet dessert wine that they're famous for.
I have 2 bottles or 3 bottles in the fridge of
Of
Tokai.
Hungarian wine? Of Tokai.
6 Petunias. 6 Petunias.
Okay. So you like the Tokai.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
of course
can't
I would.
I can't drink it. It's sweet and it's white. It's everything I hate. But I hate sweet and white. We've got about 3 more minutes here before we're going to say goodbye.
Well,
'Cause we
then
need to
I'll
leave
have a word
in
about
time for the
wines because
commercials.
I'm French.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I've had fabulous wines from England, the Netherlands, Austria,
Yes.
all the places that are not known for their wines. White
Well,
wines, of course, dry white wines.
yeah,
But I just
they're
wanted to
colder
say,
climates, so they would grow white wine. Yeah.
so I want just to say that was possible. And I'm French. So people have
It
to
is
remember I'm French.
it is possible. And if we ever get this global warming we've been promised, maybe we can grow some red wines in England, because their red wine is pretty horrible.
I'm sure we will, unfortunately.
I am not sure. It's been our sea levels, according to Al Gore's, an Inconvenient Truth documentary. We're already all dead, and Florida is completely gone due to rising sea levels, and it just simply hasn't happened. So I think a lot of the predictions are not there. Are we polluting the earth? Absolutely. Is the globe warming because of that pollution? I'm not convinced. Every prediction that the scientists have modeled since the ozone layer in the 70s has been wrong, 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 wrong. And if the oligarchs actually believed in this climate science that they claim to, they would stop taking private jets everywhere.
Well, all I can hope is that you are right, because I happen to know that there's a president in the United States right now that is absolutely ready and willing to cut back every single climate or pollution barrier ever implemented in the
I
United
am not
States.
for cutting back pollution barriers in any way, shape, or form, but you're right. Trump is an extremist. But as far as the climate warming, it does not appear to be happening. It's just weather. And the climate has changed 700 times throughout.
Oh, and this is when we lose Carl again. And by the time he comes back, it'll probably be the end of the show. So, my friends, thank you very much for either watching us, but certainly listening to us. I do believe in climate control, as in, let's not be silly and kill ourselves, because something you must remember is that we are not killing the earth. The earth is doing very well. The earth will definitely continue to live once we have reached a point where humans cannot survive. So we are not killing the earth, we are killing ourselves. And that is not only scientific, it's rather evident, as seen in how many times the Earth has gotten rid of most of its animal population and has continued again. I'm talking about the asteroid, the glacial things, and so on. Now, we are still seem to be recording, but I do believe we are coming to the end. So unless Mr. Wilder comes back, I'd have to say thank you very much for listening. And I think I will have to say goodbye myself, because I don't think that he's coming back for the time being. So I will press the little red button and hope that that was it. Thank you very much for listening. And till next week, where I should be broadcasting from the car throughout Germany, if it works. Thank you very much. Oh, you know what? I can't close the recording. He has to close the recording, and he hasn't shut the recording. So I don't know what to do. The thing is this, if I leave, I don't think we'll still be recording. So thank you, my friends, and goodbye.